All right, folks, welcome back. It's time for our next 300 Winchester Magnum video. As I sit here to film this, I just released the first 300 Winchester Magnum video this morning, and there've been a lot of great comments come in, and I want to talk through some of the suggestions and some of the questions that have jumped out at me. Now, while we're at it, I also want to load up some more ammunition and go ahead and shoot 25 more shots through our gun. Now, in the last video, one of our better groups was with the 220 grain Sierra Matchking. I want to shoot 15 more of these guys today. And I also want to try something a little different here. This is the 240 grain Sierra Matchking. Now, if we look on the box here, they kind of messed up the sticker on this box and you can't really see it, but this red writing here says 9-inch twist barrels only. We have a 10-inch twist barrel. This bullet shouldn't work, but I've got 10 of these laying around. And I can't help myself. I want to try them. If they're not going to stabilize, I want to see it for myself. Now here's the thing though. I've been looking around the internet and everybody's saying that their 1 in 10 twist barrels are stabilizing them just fine. If you go to the product page on the Sierra website for that bullet, they've got comments down at the bottom. One of them is that, hey, this bullet shoots great in my 1 in 10 twist Thompson Center. So I'm feeling pretty confident that they're probably going to stabilize. And you talk about a crazy bullet, man. The ballistic coefficient on those guys is 0.711. So they will really, really fly. And they carry a whole lot of energy with all that weight. So I reckon, if we're going to shoot a 300 freaking Winchester Magnum, we might as well try and load up some big boy rounds for it. So that's what we're going to do. 15 of the 220s, 10 of the 240s, and we'll go hit the range. So another thing I wanted to mention, Mopar Madman over at the Bolt Action Reloading YouTube channel has also got a Thompson Center Compass in 300 Winchester Magnum. His early tests with it were pretty crappy. He mentioned in the comments that he had just loaded up some more ammo and was headed back to the range, so we should get a video from him with one of these guns pretty soon. Maybe he can measure his throat and let us know whether it seems super long like ours does. So be sure to check out his channel, and maybe his results will help us, fill in the missing pieces as we go along or verify our results. Somebody else to check out is 243 Outdoors here on YouTube. He just got a 308 Thompson Center Compass. He's been struggling a little bit with it. He shot some good groups with some light bullets, and he's continuing to explore. I think he said he was going to try some 155s next. So if you're interested in the Compass, those are a couple guys you should check out. There's a lot of people reporting success though. In the comments of the last 300 Win Mag video, somebody had mentioned 7mm Magnum and it was shooting great. And I think it was a 270 was shooting well. And somebody said their 30-06 was shooting well. So it really does seem that maybe there are just a couple of cartridges they're chambering in that they're just not chambering as well or something. I don't know. One of the 30-06 comments also was that in his gun, the throat was super short. He was trying to run ammo that he used in his M1 Garand in his new 30-06 Compass, and it was jamming into the lands. So it seems like maybe 30-06, they've got a short throat in that one. So things just kind of seem to be all over the place. All right, I need to switch camera angles and talk through a couple things. All right, first of all, a guy named Matt had asked for additional documentation about it being safe to load long overall lengths. In the last video, we were exceeding SAAMI maximum overall length by a lot, and that makes some people nervous. So I went looking into some manuals and stuff to see if maybe I could find somewhere official that agreed with me. Here, this is the Hornady 10th edition manual, and on the subject of seating depth, it says a bullet may not appear accurate simply because it is not seated to the depth most suited to the firearm in use. If bullets are seated too deeply, they have a longer distance to travel unsupported to reach the bore and may enter it off center. In general, the less distance to the bore, the greater the accuracy. The reloader has entire control over seating depth up to the physical limitations of action, magazine, or barrel. Experimentation with seating depths can help you achieve the best. In our loading data pages, we list the maximum cartridge overall length according to SAAMI specifications. Differences in manufacturing tolerances mean that your most accurate cartridge overall length may differ from those published here. Then it goes on to talk about crimping. Now, a better discussion on the topic happens in the Berger manual. There's an article here called The Effects of Cartridge Overall Length and Cartridge Based Ogive. You might recognize that name. He's some Mr. Smarty Pants ballistics guy. And there's a section here that specifically talks about the effects of seating depth on pressure and velocity. This article is available on Brian's website. It's actually a link back to the Berger website is where the actual article is hosted. So I'm not going to read you the whole thing here, but this highlighted part here might set your mind at ease. It says, in fact, the extra powder you can add to a cartridge with the bullet seated long will allow you to achieve greater velocity at the same pressure than a cartridge with a bullet seated short. Now, in another portion of this manual where they talk about getting the best precision and accuracy from VLD bullets in your rifle, the exercise they recommend is to load rounds at overall lengths all the way from 10 thousandths of jam and then varying amounts of jump from 30 to 110 thousandths. And then you move on, you see which ones shoot better, and then you keep narrowing it down, and you find that best overall length for the VLD style bullet you're trying to shoot. Now, the website I was talking about, where there are a bunch of Brian Litt's articles that are just awesome. Some of them are extremely technical, but the cartridge overall length and cartridge-based ogive article, there's a part 1 and a part 2, is written in pretty plain language, pretty easy to understand, and hopefully it'll set your mind at ease about stretching out your overall lengths and in general just using overall length to tune your rifle rather than always sticking to the recommended number in the manuals. So his website is Applied Ballistics, and I think the website is actually appliedballisticsllc.com. Across the top you'll see education, and under education you'll see articles, and it's a big page with a bunch of articles. About 3/4 of the way down the page is where you'll find the one for cartridge overall length, and like I mentioned, it's the same article that's in the Berger manual. Tell you what, the Berger manual is a good read, even if you don't shoot their bullets. Like, there's a lot of knowledge in here, and there's part of it I haven't read. I really need to take the time to sit down, go through it, and kind of soak in what this manual has to offer, because it's got a lot. So the next comment I want to talk about, somebody had mentioned that the failures they get on their 300 Winchester Magnum brass are primer pockets. After a couple firings, the primer pockets are blown out. So what I've got here that you can see I removed the primers from, these 15 were the once fired brass we loaded in the last video. So these are now fired twice. And another thing I've got here is this Ballistic Tools Swage Gauge large primer pocket gauge. We've been using the small version of this tool in the 224 Valkyrie videos because primer pockets are a big problem in that cartridge. All it is basically a go no-go gauge for primer pockets. So if we grab one of these that's been fired twice, there should be one end that goes in. There it is right there. That's the go side. And if we flip it over, the other side should not go in. And it doesn't. Like, not even close. And that comment really got me worried. So like, I went through and checked every single one of these with this tool just to be sure. And they're all good, and there's actually quite a bit of margin. Like, none of them are even close. Like over in the Valkyrie, like I was mentioning, where primer pockets are a problem, after one firing, it's like, it's almost going in, even on a good piece of brass. These, it's not even coming close. So things may change as we chase the high velocities and move up in powder charges and try higher pressure charges. Maybe primer pockets will be an issue, but so far on 2 firings, so far so good. But we'll be keeping an eye on it with our primer pocket gauge, and also just feeling, as you're priming brass, you can feel it when they start getting loose. Unless you prime on the press or something and don't really have much, feel for the primer going in, you'll feel it. With a hand primer or a bench primer or something like that, you'll feel it. Now, the other thing that came up made me feel pretty stupid, to be honest with you. This is my neck turning kit. This is a K&M neck turning setup for 30 caliber. So this is the actual neck turner. Little cutting blade down in there, and you put your case. Yeah, it goes like over there, which this isn't going to fit right now because it hasn't been expanded, but that's what this is. We're going to deal with this probably in the next video. We're going to get into some neck turning. However, like I just mentioned, you saw how this did not fit onto the neck turning tool. Yep, doesn't fit. So whenever you want to turn your necks, you use an expanding mandrel. You put this in the press and you run the cases up onto this, and it kind of stretches out that neck a little bit. Now, this would have been extremely useful in the last video when we were resizing our new brass, because this actually is, so this is a new piece of brass. And the necks on these are only 0.331, 0.332. It varies a little bit, but there's a bunch of them that are very small, 0.331. If you'll recall, in our sizing die, we are using a 0.332 bushing. So this neck would go up into the sizing die and not get touched. And in the last video, we were using the expander ball in the die to open them up a little bit, but the expander really wasn't big enough to expand them enough so that the bushing did its job. So what we're going to do in today's video, we're going to shoot shoot 15 pieces of new brass. So the 220 grain Sierra Matchking loads are going to be done in new brass, but before we run them through the sizing die, we're going to run them up onto this expanding mandrel so that the neck will be big enough so that it can then go up into the bushing and get sized just like our previously fired cases. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. These expanders are not expensive, and I should really buy a bunch more because I don't have them in several calibers, and these just come in handy sometimes. They really do. So those were the main things that, just kind of jumped out at me at first that I wanted to discuss. There have been a bunch of other great comments show up on that last video. We've had some people say that the Larry Willis collet die that sizes right above our belt, people were saying that that would be a big help to them. And we've had a couple other people saying that they don't have any problems with that. So we're going to start a little bit of a test, and we'll have some brass that we don't use it on and some brass that we do use it on, and see for ourselves how things go. So let's back out. Let's talk through our load data. Okay, so load data is going to be pretty straightforward. In the last video where we shot the 220 grain Sierra Matchking, we used Alliant Reloader 26. We're going to keep using Alliant Reloader 26. In the last video, we shot 72.0 grains, and today we're just going to work up from that in half grain increments. So 72.5, 73, and 73.5 grains. Now, at the last video, 72 grains got us 2,720 feet per second. So we'll see what we get as we work our way up to 73.5. The max charge on the Alliant load data is 74.2, but their data was at 135,000 shorter overall length. So just like you'll see in that Brian Litz article, longer overall length, more effective case capacity, should lower the pressures, gives us more room to put powder in there. So I really don't expect to run into pressure signs, but we'll keep a close eye on things and see what happens. With the 240 grain Sierra Matchking, Alliant has also got data for this. They show a max charge of 71.7 grains. I might be getting into trouble here, but I've only got 10 of them and I kind of want to start a little bit higher than I should. I'm going to start at 70 grains. I want to shoot 70. We'll see how those look, and I also want to load 71 grains. The max charge on their website is 71.7. Now, what's interesting is their test overall length with this bullet was 3.470. That's just 5,000 shorter than our full magazine length. So they tested this guy long, which means we need to be a little bit more careful with our load data. We're not getting that extra buffer that we get with some of the others from, loading them longer than the book calls for. So 71.7 is a max at this overall length that we're going to be shooting anyway. So I'll be keeping a close eye on the brass with these as well. Hopefully I don't blow my face off. The primer, same as the last video, the CCI number 250 Magnum large rifle primer. So our brass is Hornady, and I've got two boxes started here. The first box are the ones that have started off new. We bought these new and we're firing them for the first time. We did 10 shots in the last video, and I want to do 15 in this video. So after this video, I'll have 25 pieces of once fired brass, and we'll be turning the necks on these in the next video most likely. The other box is the brass I've recovered from the factory ammo that we've shot. We're going to shoot 10 pieces of this today, stuff that is once fired. So we're going to put the second firing on 10 pieces of that. I think as far as our new brass and fire forming and all of that stuff, I'm going to stop right here. I'm planning to do 25 shot videos in this 300 Winchester Magnum series. For one, big huge cartridge, barrel heat is going to be a problem if I try to do 50 round tests. I'm going to be on the range, 3 or 4 hours trying to keep barrel heat under control. That's my fear. Plus recoil, sit down and shoot 50 rounds of 300 Winchester Magnum can suck. So I think 25 rounds is about the right number. The other 75 pieces of new brass we've got, I'm not going to touch them right now. I've gotten myself into trouble in the past by, buying a batch of brass and prepping it all the same way. And then down the line, I realized that I wish I still had some new stuff that hadn't been messed with so that I could, take what I've learned and kind of start over. And that's what I want to avoid here. So like the neck turning we're going to do, maybe we'll find out that's stupid and we didn't need to do it. So working with a small batch gives us some flexibility there. It also lets us get more firings on that brass quickly, because I'd really like to know what our brass failure is going to look like. Primer pockets, case splits, case head separations that blow our face off. Let's try and get there as quick as we can. Did I cover everything? I think I covered everything. No, I didn't. Holy crap, I didn't. There's a very important thing I need to talk about. Let's go back to the uppy-closey view. Okay, do you guys remember in the last video with the 220 grain Sierra Matchking, when we were out on the range, I mentioned that I had a couple rounds that measured totally different from cartridge-based to ogive. Well, I decided to go ahead and measure the bullets that I had left in this box, and you'll notice some of them got some blue Sharpie marks on it, and I'll show you why. I went through and measured bullet-based ogive with the Hornady bullet comparator on all of these. Now, this is one of the blue guys, and it is a .904. All three of the blue guys are right about that same number. Like this guy's 905, and the last guy here is 904 again. But if we go to the bigger lot of them here, .929. That's 25 thousandths difference. There's another one here at 929, another one here at 929. All of the ones we're going to shoot today are this size, right at .930 or .929. And these three oddballs are just going to get used for sighters here down the road. Now the big problem is, guess which one I used whenever I measured my distance to the lands in my rifle? You guessed it. So the maximum cartridge overall length that I listed in the last video was like 25 thousandths off. Guess how much jump I said we had in the last video with this bullet? 26 thousandths. So in reality, most of the rounds we shot in the last video were either right at the lands or had 1, maybe 2 thousandths of jump. This is the first time this sort of situation has bit me in the ass like this. Now, if I had used that number and we had been trying to get right up to the lands, then when we switched to these, we would have had 25 thousandths of jam. So that's just weird, man. Now, I pulled out 2 more open boxes. I don't know why I have so many open boxes of the exact same bullet, but I do. I could not find any more bullets in here that were as short as those 3. So there were 5 or 6 bullets that were just really, really weird. All the ones in that box are within 3-4 thousandths or so of the normal ones from this box. So these are true oddballs. I don't know what in the heck, but at least we caught it, and now we've got a more accurate idea of how much we're jumping to the lands. And it's about 1/1000th of an inch. Like we're tucked up pretty close to them. And they shot pretty good in the last video with that length, so we're just going to stick with it. Now, another thing I want to show you, the 240 grain Sierra Matchking has got the exact same ogive shape. It's just got a little more junk in the trunk back there, a little longer bearing surface, but the ogives seem to be identical. How do I know? Well, both of these have got the exact same maximum overall length in the gun. Using my bullet comparator, each one of these hits the lands at about 2.902 or 2.901. So the overall length we're going to shoot today is going to be 2.900 with the comparator, and whatever overall length number I gave whenever I had the load data on the screen, I'll throw it up here again. I don't know what number I'm going to put there yet. It should be in the 3.470 to 3.475 range, just short of our magazine length. But once I get them seated to that cartridge-based ogive number, then I'll take an overall length to the tip, see what the average is, and that's what you're seeing here on the load data. Is that confusing enough? So I'm ready to start brass prep, and as I mentioned, I'm going to call into service this K&M mandrel. I think it's 308 is the actual size of the mandrel. Yep, right about 308. Now the 10 fired cases we're shooting, of course we don't need it, right? These were already expanded plenty large enough when we fired them, but the new brass, this guy's going to go down and just spread them out a little bit. So this just screws into the press. We screw it all the way down. I'm going to take a little bit of Redding Imperial sizing die wax. I'm going to put some directly onto that dude and then just run it up on there. It takes a good bit of force, and it's hard not to do what I just did. I just jammed it all the way up there, and it actually hit the top. Hopefully we didn't booger things up. Nah, it seems okay. So let's take a measurement of the neck now. This guy is now at 334. Yep, getting pretty consistent 334 numbers. And remember, beforehand we were 331 or 332. See if I can do a little bit slower this time. Nope, not really. It doesn't matter. There we go. That guy went easier. Okay, last one here, and there we have it. All right, so I finished up that expanding, and next is our resizing die. Unfortunately, I've had it out of the press, and I need to set it up again. I need my headspace comparator for that. All right, so I think the number ended in 7. I don't remember exactly what it was, but... Now here's something you gotta be careful of. If you remember in the last video, our headspace number in my gun was 2.277. This guy's reading 2.280. The reason why is because it still has the primer in it, and there's just a little bit, a tiny little bit of a primer crater that is messing up our measurement. After we put it through the die the first time and the primer gets popped out, I bet we see our 77 number come back. So let's go ahead and do that. Up into the die, down and out. So this guy's already down to 2.274. I put it in the press about like we had it last time. Not really camming over, but you know, enough to take the slack out of the press. So it seems like I just happened to nail the die setting. Here's what I'm gonna do. Let me throw a universal decapping die in. The next piece, we'll pop the primer out before we measure it. I just wanna see that same headspace number that ended in 77, because that's what we're supposed to get, dang it. Yep, there it is, 2.277. So that's what we did in the last video. We started with 2.277, we adjusted our die to bump the shoulder 0.03, which takes us to 2.274. Make sure this guy gives us the same number. Up and in. I'm really shocked there's very little work happening. Like this goes up in there very easy and comes out extremely easy. Like I could do this on a little Lee loader press without any trouble. Like there's just not a whole lot of work going on. 2.274, so right on the money. So I guess for all of the complaining I'm doing about the throat in this chamber, it at least seems to be pretty tight, right? Like it's a really nice fit with this Hornady full-length sizing die. Like we're just not working the brass that much. And that is extremely good news. All right, so that's the last piece of the once fired brass. And now we're moving over to the new brass that we expanded the neck on. This'll go up in there even easier. Barely touched anything, but our bushing should have done its job here. Let's see what the neck diameter looks like now. 0.333. If you remember, our bushing is a 0.332, and we saw the same thing in the last video. The brass comes out 1/1000th bigger than the bushing size. Yep, here's a piece of the once fired that I had resized first, and it's 333. So that's good. We should have consistent neck tension between our new brass and our once fired brass, or pretty close. All right, folks, brass prep is all done. I figured we covered it thoroughly enough in the last video. The new brass, of course, it was resized. I checked the length of every single piece to make sure they weren't too long. All of the new brass, just like the last video, they're about 7,000 or 8,000 short of max length, so good to go there. A little deburr and chamfer on the case mouth, and I deburred the flash holes, just like the last video. So this stuff's ready to go. On the once fired brass, now in the last video, I had tumbled that brass and it was totally clean. This video I haven't, so in addition to all the stuff I did with that, deburr and chamfer, flash hole deburr, I also took a little primer pocket brush and cleaned out the primer pockets just a touch, and we're all ready to go. Now, today's video, we are not going to use the Larry Willis die, but we can use it as a case gauge real quick. Now, if you remember the new brass, that's not going to be a problem. It's all going to go down in there, and it actually goes down in there a little bit sloppy. But our once fired, there you go, first piece, it is not going down in there. We are not going to use this on these though. This is the first of our test of what happens when we don't fix that. So we'll be keeping track of these pieces as we go, and we're never going to use this die until we absolutely have to. Same deal there. It's already not going all the way in. Yep, it's looking the same on all of them. All right, there's a piece that if you give it a little bit of pressure, it goes in, but it's not going in easy. Yep, that's the last one. Good deal. Now, one problem I did run into, I need to make sure and show you guys. Look at this piece of brass I found with this crease in the shoulder. And if I could get the angle right, you might be able to tell. I think it goes all the way up the neck. Yeah, there you go. Can you see it? Little shiny spot. I think this was a crease during forming, and that's a junk piece of brass. So I pulled this guy out, grabbed another new piece, and replaced it. Because I'd have to imagine that would end up being a split neck really soon. Even if that kind of did fire form out, I think that spot in the neck is going to be a weak spot, perhaps. I don't want to find out the hard way. Might as well cull it. So the next steps, I'm going to put in the primers, I'm going to weigh out the charges, and that part's pretty boring, so I'll just see you guys over at the bullet seating die. All right, let's get these bullets seated. The die is still in the press from the last video. We're not going to mess with it, but we're going to back out our adjustment a little bit just to be sure. So if you remember, we wanted a 2.9 inch cartridge-based ogive number with both of these bullets. And both bullets measured the exact same cartridge-based ogive maximum length in my gun. So I think these things have the same ogive. I bet the seating die setting is going to be the same for both. Not that that really, means anything or whatever, but it's pretty interesting. All right, we're starting with the 240 grain Matchking. Let's start getting this guy dialed in. Hopefully I didn't go too far here. Nope, we're at 3.006. So I need to come down 106 thousandths. So let's dial that in here with the Hornady micro adjuster thingy. What'd I say, 103, 106? I forgot what I said, whatever. We'll go 103 and see where that puts us. reading 2.901 and a half. So let's go ahead and seat another one before we make another adjustment. This one's about 2.902, or yeah, 2.901 and a half, just like the last one. All right, let's go ahead and tweak it down about 0.002 and run these back through. And I'll also go ahead and seat a third guy with this setting, and we'll see if we hit our number. 2.9 inches, 2.9 inches, and 2.9 inches. So these are all right on the money. I'll tell you what, I did go ahead and measure the bullet-based ogive on all of these bullets because after seeing those funky readings with the 220 grainers, I just wanted to make sure the 240s were pretty consistent, and they are. Pretty sweet looking round, even if the brass is a touch dirty, looking pretty good. So on the overall length to the tip, I'm getting numbers between 3.471 and 3.475. Let's just go ahead and call it 3.475, which is our full magazine length, but we know that the best way to return to this setting is to actually use the bullet comparator and set them to 2.9, right? Now I do have a little bit of powder moving in the case, so this is not a compressed charge, which means that our next charge weight, we probably won't have to make any adjustments to the seating die. Sometimes when you're shooting compressed charges, as you get more and more compressed, you have to keep turning your bullet seating die down just a little bit with each charge, but if these aren't compressed, we shouldn't have to worry about that. Let's see. Yep, and this guy's still got some powder moving as well. 2.9005, pretty close. Another one, 2.9005. And that's it for the 240s. I can't wait to see if these guys are going to stabilize. I really think they are. I bet they're going to shoot well. All right, now moving over to the 220 grainer. Like I say, I bet it's the same die setting, but just to be safe, let's go ahead and back out 10 thousandths. So that's 10 thousandths. We'll see if this is 2.910. It's just a little bit longer, 2.914. All right, let's dial that 14 in. Okay, that should get us about where we need to be. Go ahead and seat a couple of them. 2.900 and 2.900 and a half. Good. Yep, and I'm getting pretty much the same overall length numbers to the tip of the bullet. 3.471, had a 3.474. So let's just call this one 3.475 as well. And we just keep in mind that the 2.9 inch cartridge-based ogive is the important number. Yeah, we've got plenty of case capacity left in all of today's loads. So if we don't run into pressure, we should be able to proceed on up to the actual max charge in future videos. But we'll see how these do. So that's it, folks. Nice and easy. Seemed a little smoother than last time. Didn't run into anything unexpected, except that one bad piece of brass. That was really the only curveball. So let's get out to the range and see if these things are going to shoot. All right, folks, just in case you forgot, I'll review really quick. This is a Thompson Center Compass. It has a 24-inch barrel, and it is threaded, and you'll notice I've got my Silencer Co. Omega suppressor and a magnetospeed chronograph on there. The barrel has a 1 in 10 twist, and the smart move for these first few shots with the 240 grain Sierra Matchking would be to remove the suppressor, because if these guys aren't going to fly stable, we could end up with a baffle strike in the suppressor. I'm going to live dangerously today. We're not going to do that. I've read so many reports that these bullets will shoot okay in the 1 in 10 that I'm not even going to worry about it. 24 power, Vortex Viper PST scope, and I think that's about it. The target is at 100 yards. The dots are 1 inch in diameter. We're going to start with the 240 grain Sierra Matchking. First up is 70 grains of Reloader 26. The gun is totally cold. I have not shot any warm-up shots at all. Oh, one thing, I did remove the sling swivel from the front and the rear, as a matter of fact, which you can't really see the rear. It's back here. Used to be a sling stud back here and one in the front. It was getting in the way during recoil and making the front bounce around, so I'm hoping the gun's going to sit a little bit better today. So let's see what happens. Yeah, those pack a wallop. See how our first piece of brass looks. Yeah, the first piece of brass looks great. The velocity was 26.55. We'll see if they'll group. That's not good. So the velocity's kind of calmed down there. After that first shot I told you about that was 26.55, the cold barrel shot, the next fastest was 26.15. Yeah, the rest were between 25.93 and 26.15. We'll have to see and keep an eye on that. Maybe that's a trend with this gun. The first shot is a good bit faster than the rest. I don't know. We'll keep an eye on that. So that was a disappointing group. I really expected these 240s to just stack right in there, and maybe they'll start doing that now that we got the gun warmed up. That was another thing somebody in the comments had asked about in yesterday's video, was how long to wait between groups and things like that to keep your barrel heat under control. Of course, a lot of it depends on ambient temperature. Like today, I think it's around 35 to 40 degrees, so it's pretty cold. I'm not going to have a ton of problems today, I don't think. After those first 5 shots, this barrel's still barely warm, like barely warm. Check back here near the chamber. Yeah, it's not bad at all. So in this case, I'm not going to wait all that long before I go ahead and shoot the next group. Another thing about barrel heat, the thing I generally have to worry about heating up is the suppressor, because when the suppressor gets hot and starts throwing off a bunch of mirage, it really screws up my sight picture. So that goes for all of my videos. That's generally my limiting factor. That's what I have to wait to let cool down. And it kind of, it's almost good. It keeps me from getting the barrels too hot. If I'm deliberately trying to heat up the gun to test like hot barrel performance every once in a while, I'll generally bring out like a wet washcloth so that I can use that to cool off the suppressor quickly and keep the mirage under control. But it generally takes me between 1 hour and 15 minutes and 1.5 hours to shoot one of my normal 50 round tests. So today with these 25 shots, I expect to be shooting about probably 45 minutes. Or maybe an hour. I'm hoping this barrel's not going to be affected that much by heat. My 6.5 Creedmoor Compass isn't. We've shot that thing rapidly, really got it heated up, and it still shoots good groups in that condition. So I'm hoping, you know, that the 300 Win Mag is going to be the same. So I guess my advice would be, don't freak out about it unless you're really seeing your groups open up and you've done it enough to feel confident that it is related to barrel heat. Just don't worry about it. Go shoot your group, see what happens. Like I have people give me recommendations, like, oh, you should wait 10 minutes between each group. Man, I'm shooting 10 groups in most videos. That's 1 hour and 40 minutes of wait time. Ain't nobody got time for that crap. So some people are just a little bit ridiculous about it, and it really just comes down to learning the nature of your gun. All right, moving on. 71.0 grains is next. Let's hope these shoot a little bit better. I'm gonna have a good look at our piece of brass here. I don't see anything going on. So it looks like we're in good shape. 2689 feet per second. So let's keep shooting. All right, so that's a whole lot better. Now that velocity of 2,670 feet per second is higher than the Alliant data had for their max charge. They list a max charge of 71.7. We only went up to 71, but they listed 2659 and we're at 2670. It's only 11 feet per second. So it's more or less right on the money, but these 5 getting some more pronounced primer cratering. It's not bad, it's not scary. It didn't make me want to stop shooting them, but I don't know that I would want to go much higher without some additional research, see what other people are doing and stuff like that. So the massive reduction in group size, was it due to barrel heat? Like, does our gun like being warmed up before it'll shoot a decent group? You can see I can still grab this barrel, no problem at all, no discomfort. It's warm, but it's not smoking hot. I've shot these 10 rounds. My camera's been filming for 26 minutes, and it took me 10 minutes to get set up and all that stuff. So probably about 10 rounds in 15 minutes or so, and the gun's not terrible as far as heat goes. You know, the other possibility is that we just landed on a really bad load. Like maybe that 70.0 load is just a terrible load and 71 is a little closer to an accuracy node or whatever. I don't know. We'll have to test more to find out. Now that we know these bullets will stabilize, I think I'm gonna have to buy some more. It's the biggest, baddest bullet there is, and if we're gonna shoot a 300 Win Mag, we might as well work us up a load with them. There's definitely a good amount of recoil, but a silencer works a lot like a muzzle brake. Like it has the same effect as a muzzle brake, reduces a lot of recoil. So this thing it's not even close to being like my 12 gauge turkey gun, like shooting big 12 gauge turkey loads. Those things will absolutely bruise you. This isn't a bruiser. Thompson Center gives us a pretty generous butt pad, and with the suppressor on there, it's reasonably comfortable to shoot. The most annoying part is the recoil just screws up your bag position And every single shot, it's almost like starting from scratch, getting your bags reset. So a Boyd stock might help with that, help them ride the bags a little bit better. All right, I'm gonna take a quick break and then we'll move on to the 220 Match Kings. Okay, time to move on to the 220 grain Sierra Match King. First up, 72.5 grains. Now we are working up from where we were in the last video, so keeping an eye on the brass here. First piece looks good. Ah, dang it. Last shot got me. Those third and fourth shots, I didn't even see any of the holes getting bigger. Starting to wonder if my scope went crazy and I was missing the paper or something. Man, that sucks. Now, I shot those 5 pretty quick. I was kind of feeling it and trying to focus and trying to make good shots. So my camera says 6.5 minutes. So I probably shot those 5 shots in about 5 minutes. 2,748 feet per second, 13.8 standard deviation. The 72.0 grain load we shot in the last video was 2720. So we picked up 28 feet per second from that load. So let's move on. 73.0. All right, I'm not going to screw this one up. Yay! I finally shot a decent group with the 220s. Man, these bullets are shooting good. They are really shooting good. I am starting to get a little bit of mirage off my suppressor. That's 10 rounds since I took a little break, and things are heating up a little bit. Yep, the barrel's warmer right now than it has been. You know, getting hot, like it's not terribly comfortable to sit your hand on. So it seems to shoot okay hot, right? I mean, it's hard to argue with that group. There's almost no wind, and that makes the, you know, the mirage worse off the suppressor. All right, let's go ahead and finish it off here. 73.5 grains. Wow, so things kind of fell apart there with our top charge. Brass still looks good. So that wasn't too bad. We stabilized the 240s. We continued to have some success with the 220. So it's all good. Now, I have 2 rounds. This was a last minute addition. I loaded up 2 rounds with the 168 grain gold dot. I'm filming another gold dot video right now, and I'm going to be pulling out the ballistics gel and stuff. And I wanted to see what the 168 grain version looked like coming out of the 300 Winchester Magnum. Now, last video we shot 76.0 grains of Reloader 26 with this bullet. I went ahead and bumped it up to Spear's max charge of 28.1. So the velocity should be pretty good on these. So I might flip on the camera when I'm actually shooting the gel, and then we'll get back to the bench and have a look at the results. All right, folks, we got 2 shots, and I'm hoping to capture at least one of the bullets. As you can see, my gel is in pretty bad shape, needs melted down and reformed, but it is what it is. Hopefully it's enough for us to get a hold of one of these guys. Here we go. That was 3,065 feet per second, and I'm about 7 to 10 yards away from the blocks. All right, we got it. It's right about right there. So these are 16-inch blocks. That's about another 4 inch, so 20, 21 inches of penetration. Okay, shot number 2. That one was 3,023 feet per second. And we captured that guy as well. It's about 1.5 inches deeper than the other one. So I'm going to dig these out and we'll get back to the bench, have a close look at them. All right, folks, holy crap. Look at what came out of the gel. These guys expanded beautifully, just incredible. This one had one of the 5 petals that bent over a little farther, and the front of it kind of looks like, I don't know, the surface of the moon. I think what's going on there is, well, you saw the condition of my gel, so it's full of, you know, little bits of lead and bullet tips and jacket pieces and stuff. I think this guy maybe impacted some of those while it was going through the gel, and maybe that's why it's a little bit more distorted than this guy, which came out almost perfect. Just really awesome performance. The velocity on these guys, one of them was 3,023 feet per second, the other was 3,065 feet per second, and I was about 10 yards away from the gel, so this was an impact at pretty much full velocity. Really good stuff. These gold dot bullets have been extremely impressive. Here's a couple that I had shot in 6.5 Creedmoor. These are 140 grainers from Creedmoor, and even some of these little guys from 22. These are either 62 grain or 75 grain. I don't know which ones they are, but across the board from little to big, I am loving the way these gold dots expand. I wasn't sure they were going to hold up to the high velocity of the 300 Winchester Magnum, but they did great. So let's get a weight on these guys. So they started out 168. That one's 154.4 and 153.8. So expansion this extreme and only losing 14 grains. Incredible stuff if you ask me. And if you remember back to the last video, these shot an awesome group. This was the very first group we shot in that video. I think it was, I don't know, 0.7, 0.8 inches, something like that. They've been accurate performers in everything I've tried them in. All right, let's look at a little bit of brass here. No serious issues. This one is from the hotter charge we shot with the 240 grainer. Case head looks good, but the primer crater is pretty distinct on this guy. Now, the other ones in that exact same row, same load, weren't quite as bad. But that one in particular, that was when, you know, we were out there and I mentioned that I was seeing primer cratering. This is the piece I was looking at. But we did see some of this on some of the factory ammo we shot, so that makes me feel a little bit better about it. Otherwise, I haven't seen any other issues on the brass, so I think we were good. The pieces we shot with the 220 grain Sierra Matchking looked really good as well. I won't waste your time on them, but these two pieces are the ones from the gold dots I shot into the ballistic gel. This was the first time we've gone up to an actual published maximum charge. Yeah, it was 78.1 grains of Reloader 26, and that's the max on the Spear load data for those bullets. Also shows a little bit of cratering, but that's about it. Otherwise, looks really good. One thing we'll do here in a minute, you guys remind me, we'll pop the primers out of here and we'll use our primer pocket gauge to make sure that we didn't blow out the primer pockets, because these have been, it was fired once as factory ammo and then now fired again with a max charge. So it's worth checking. All right, before I forget, let's do that primer pocket check right now. This is the go side, so that goes in no problem. This is the no-go side. Yep, it's not even close. Like, it's not even trying to go down in there. Check the other one. There's the go side, and there's the no-go side. Yeah, this is really good stuff. Even the go side is reasonably tight in there. So, primer pockets in the Hornady brass seem to be hanging in there. Okay, let's go ahead and have another look at the groups. At this point, I don't think we can come up with an explanation for why that first group was so big, 1.732 inches, and then the next group was so tight at 0.752 inches. We're going to need to do a proper test with this bullet and powder, you know, kind of like one of my normal videos. Shoot 3 or 4/10 of a grain increments and try and cover a little bit more ground in a little bit finer detail. This might just be one of those powder and bullet combinations where certain charge weights shoot terrible and you really got to hunt for those good accuracy nodes. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of what it looks like here, because I felt like I was making good shots on that first group. They just weren't grouping. Kind of a similar story over there with the 220 grain Sierra Matchking. That first group was almost a good one, right? That last shot screwed it up, opened it up to around an inch. And then that next one was our best group of the day, 0.693 inches. And then the last group opened way up. They weren't even trying to group anymore. At least the first two groups there with the 220 were trying to group. Now, velocities, as I mentioned, were higher than I expected because, the Alliant max charge of 74.2 grains, they showed it being 2,826 feet per second. So we're already over that number and we're still 7/10 below their max charge. I mean, that's pretty close. You know, it could just be the difference. Like I think I mentioned earlier in the video that their load data uses federal cases and we're using Hornady. So a little bit of case capacity difference is maybe giving us some more velocity, or maybe this barrel just shoots a little bit fast, who knows? But we're definitely, you know, we're getting up there to the interesting numbers where we got to really start watching ourselves. It was the same story with the 240 grainer. The max velocity they showed was 2659 and we got 2670 and we were 7/10 of a grain below on that guy as well. But overall, I'm happy with those results. I'm very happy with those results. You guys let me know what you think about the 240 grain Sierra Match King. They're certainly interesting to me and I'd like to keep working with them a little bit, but they are pretty expensive. So if you guys aren't interested at all, then we'll just pass it over, maybe save it for later. We're definitely going to continue with the 220 since I've got so many, but next video we're going to be switching powder because I'm just about out of Reloader 26. Nobody carries it locally, so I'm going to need to order some, pay a hazmat fee and order some in. While I'm at it, I might pick up some different primers just to test with. I don't want to go crazy on the primer front, but maybe 1 or 2 other types would be worthwhile to try. If you guys have had luck with a particular primer, or you know of a like commonly known good primer for 300 Winchester Magnum, let me know what it is and I'll pick some up. I hope Speer ends up releasing a heavier gold dot, maybe a 180 or even a 200. That would be sweet because man, these bullets just rock. They're accurate, the gel performance is incredible, and the price isn't terrible. The 30 caliber version here, the 168, these boxes of 50 are 15 bucks. So 30 cents per bullet, which I think is a pretty decent bargain for a bonded bullet that's really accurate and shows the sort of gel performance we've seen. I really wish I would have been able to kill a couple deer with these things this year to see how they performed in the real world, but it just didn't happen. Let's see, what else do I have to talk about here? I've got some other videos I need to get knocked out, so it's probably going to be a week and a half to 2 weeks before the next 300 Winchester Magnum video. And in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and order a Boyd stock. I think it'll make it easier to shoot off the bench and maybe, you know, tighten our groups or at least help a little bit with consistency perhaps. Because right now, like I mentioned out there with the factory stock on there and the way it sits in bags, every shot, the recoil knocks it so far off. It's almost like starting over and trying to get your position settled between each shot. That's a little bit annoying. So I think a Boyd's would help a little bit with that. So I'm going to order a stock. I'm going to go ahead and get a 0.331 inch bushing, right? If you remember, we got the 0.333 and the 0.332. The 0.332 is working great. We've got about 2 thousandths of neck tension and so far so good. Like that seems to be getting the job done. But if we're going to go ahead and turn the necks on some of this brass in the next video, I'm worried about how much we'll need to take off. And if we need to take them down to 12.5 thousandths, say, we may end up in a position where a 331 could be needed for that. So I'm just going to go ahead and order one. And I think those 3 are going to be everything we need for the Hornady brass. Someone else had mentioned that there's some 190 grain federal gold medal match ammo that might shoot well in this gun. I'm trying to remember why I think they were saying it has a longer overall length, but now I'm wondering what bullet it shoots because there's not a 190 grain Match King, is there? Hang on, let me look it up. Holy crap, there is. There's a 190 grain Sierra Match King. I didn't even know that bullet existed. Yeah, heck, I might pick up some of those as well. Probably not. We got enough freaking bullets to play with. I've got too many bullets laying around, but I'll definitely pick up a box of the gold medal match. We'll see if that crap will shoot. Before I do a video on the gun that might attract viewers that don't hand load, I'd like to at least find some factory ammo that shoots at least respectable in the gun, and maybe that's a good candidate, so I'll pick up a box of those. I'm so excited about this project, and I really didn't expect to be. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the last video, I kind of got dragged into this a little bit, and I don't really have a good use for the gun, but now that we're into it, I'm really enjoying it. It feels new. Like it feels like I'm exploring something completely new. It's not just the exact same techniques and things that, you know, cover all of the other cartridges I reload. A few twists and turns, and it's really got me intrigued. Plus we're seeing some success and shooting some small groups, so it's just all good. Yeah, so that's where we'll leave this one, folks. I appreciate you joining me, and I'll see you next time.